So welcome to the latest series of the development and support webinars delivered by NIHR Academy. My name is Martine Scannell and I work on the NIHR Academy as a development and support manager. This webinar, Leading Hybrid Teams, is developed in collaboration between the NIHR Academy and Oak Ridge, one of our leadership development and support partners. This webinar will be facilitated by Mark Blanchard and Joe Clare, both senior consultants at Oak Ridge, who have extensive experience in behavioural and cultural change and are passionate about helping people and teams to achieve their full potential. Mark, I will now hand over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Martine. So for leading hybrid teams, just to set a little bit of context, as humans, me personally prefer stability, certainty, simplicity, and clarity in our lives, and that gives us comfort, kind of that warm, fuzzy feeling of things that are within our control, that we're kind of in control of our lives. We can predict what's going to be happening. We can plan accordingly to that, and that makes us feel comfortable. However, and just to set the context of leading hybrid teams is, especially over the last 18 months, that certainty, simplicity, and clarity has really been thrown up in the air. So we've seen a world evolve, and the world has been kind of unstable for quite a long time, but the pandemic has really shown that stable and certainty has gone, and is really characterized by what the acronym VUCA. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And so you may have come across the term VUCA, and that really characterizes the kind of world we live in, and which has really been brought to the fore. As a team member, so on project teams, part of a team, this throws up a lot of challenges. But for those leading teams, it adds further complexity to people's lives. When we as humans are faced with a VUCA situation, this makes us feel uncomfortable. When we feel uncomfortable, then we seek to protect ourselves. So kind of fight-flight response. So a tendency is that when we're faced with these situations, we kind of stick with what we know and what we're comfortable with. We find solutions that feel safe, and they don't, we become really risk averse. We choose to work with people we trust. So we want to work with people we know well, because we're feeling we need a safe space to kind of work in. We withdraw from things that feel difficult and kind of avoid people and things that we don't really know or understand. So the shift to hybrid working actually makes working within a VUCA context even more challenging. And it presents those practical challenges of how we work really effectively and efficiently together. How are we innovative? How are we creative? How can we ensure we're being productive and delivering what's expected of us? It impacts our ability to maintain close and trusting relationships and build new relationships. And really those two ingredients of building and maintaining trustful relationships turns us from a team into a great team and a great performing team. So as leaders, we need to help our teams feel more comfortable within a VUCA environment and help them to adapt to new ways of working quickly. This enables them to feel safe and perform to their potential with that confidence. So helping them think broadly and creatively, collaborate with the right people, provide the best solutions and opportunities when faced with challenge. So a key challenge, therefore, is that in hybrid teams and with hybrid working, how can everybody still feel connected and part of the team? As a leader, how do you engage with your team? How do you show understanding at all times when everybody's not in the same room as yourselves? Creating clarity for the team members, helping them create agility to be able to navigate the uncertainty. So before we kind of look at how to, some hints and tips and techniques of how to actually do that, then there's lots of things being published which talk about hybrid working and hybrid teams. So just to set the context of what we mean by hybrid teams. So hybrid working sometimes is referred to as blended working. It's when you have team members who may be co-located in the office, but but you also got team members who are working remotely. So that could be from another office, or it could be from home, or it could be, that they're not basically in the same room. And bear in mind that within this context as well, you'll have team members are kind of balancing that they may work part of their time in the office and part of their time, for example, at home. So the level of flexibility that team members may have may be set on the organization. So having core hours that people work certain hours, and that determines the level of flexibility within a hybrid working setting. The individuals may decide for themselves of what works best for them. So a staff or a team member oriented a mode of working. It may also determine by the role of the member. So, for example, if you are I'm a chemist by trade, really difficult if you're in a lab to actually do that at home. So actually your role may preclude you from working remotely, and you may have to work within an office space or a lab space. The Chartered Institute of Professional Development, so the CIPD, they published a report called Embedding New Ways of Working Post-Pandemic. And this showed that 40% of employers said they expected more than half of their workforce to work regularly from home after the pandemic has ended. Before the pandemic, 65% of employers either didn't offer regular working from home or only offered it to around about 10% of the workforce. Whereas actually post-crisis, that's actually flipped to actually, instead of 2/3 of employers not offering it, only 1/3. So there's been a big shift in driving towards hybrid working, rather than it being a nice to have, more of a necessity over this is a new way of working. And there's some data from the Office of National Statistics. Prior to COVID, only around 5% of the workforce work from home, but then we've seen that through the pandemic and new ways of working, actually that percentage is increasing significantly as well. And just making reference as well to the NHS People Plan. So that was released in September last year. And that really emphasized the need to build flexible working changes that are emerging through COVID-19 in order to become a modern and model employer. So the NHS People Plan says actually that the ways of working need to change in order to meet the new needs. So for leaders, we're likely to find that we're part of a team not consistently in the workplace. Part of our team's working from home. They may be choosing to work there, or through their own personal circumstances will prefer not to be in the co-located space. So how do we keep control of actually what's happening here where we haven't got everybody kind of right in front of us? And the flexible nature of hybrid working on meeting individual needs can have huge benefits. So some things to consider in terms of the benefits of hybrid working, and there's a benefit from organizational perspective, but also from the personal perspective. So focused collaboration and working relationships. So this is about prioritizing on-site working for creative, innovative ideation, workshopping, and having like home working, remote working for doing more of the administrative parts of a role, analyzing data. When you need some quiet space to really focus on some particular task, remote working might work quite well in that situation, depending on your circumstances. Improving that work-life balance. So we all have other things that we do other than working, and hybrid working works well to actually fit around our own working patterns. So staff are structuring their day to use breaks for other essential things they might be doing. So, taking care of children, maybe some caring duties that you have, having a lunch with friends and colleagues who aren't work colleagues, hybrid working enables that to happen. Overall, improving happiness, being free to work when and where you please, can have a significant positive impact. Increasing productivity. There was some work done by the Boston Consulting Group, and that showed that more than half of managers believe that their teams are even more or at least as productive as they were before the pandemic with hybrid working. So it's not that hybrid working has a negative impact on productivity. So there are studies that show actually hybrid working works really well in terms of a productivity perspective. Greater accessibility and attracting talent. So a hybrid working, offering that flexibility of working, is great for a team member in attracting them to an organization. So an organization where this works well is going to attract and retain key talent there. Maintain accessibility. So where, you know, an office location may not suit certain individuals, then, you know, hybrid working may provide a solution to that. And so, you know, really helps us drive inclusivity and diversity in our workforce as well. Improving trust. So one of the most difficult aspects of healthy collaborative working is to develop trust. And for an employer to trust the staff to work remotely and in a hybrid fashion means that as an employee, as a staff member, if my organization trusts me that I'm going to get on and do what's expected of me, then that's going to improve the bond between myself and the organization, kind of linking into being able to attract and retain talent as well. Kind of, you know, hybrid working means that you've got to use technology platforms in order to get visibility of performance. So actually, hybrid working can create platforms whereby performance can be managed. Everyone can have line of sight with what's going on with regards to the projects. So, you know, milestones and dates like that. Hybrid working actually is a good vehicle for using technology in that way. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Joe to just open up a poll. So this is a multiple answers. So what are the top 3 benefits of hybrid working for your team from what we've just seen here?
Okay, that's launched, Mark.
So everyone should see the poll.
Yeah.
Here we go. How are we doing, Joe?
So we've got 69% voting, so doing well there, yeah. A few more seconds. Last 10 seconds, get your votes in. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now and share the results on screen. So overwhelming benefit, that improved work-life balance that you talked about, Mark. Absolutely. Thinking about improved happiness as well, accessibility and inclusion, and then kind of maybe less so greater visibility. So we should perhaps explore that a little bit as well. How can we create that visibility that everybody needs to be able to know what they're doing? Thanks, Mark.
Great stuff. And Joe, before you go, which one of those would be that you see as the biggest benefit of from your hybrid working?
So from my perspective, I think I've found improved visibility and collaboration. Interestingly, when we're out and about with clients, we perhaps don't communicate as much. So communicating more seems to be much more beneficial, and I feel closer to my team as a result of working in this environment. So thanks for that.
Great stuff.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's close that down. Okay, but as with everything, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So it does have its challenges as well. So, you know, firstly, how do you meet everybody's needs? If you've got a team of 20 people and you're having to meet the needs of each individual, that can be a real challenge to make sure, you know, you're not going to please all the people all of the time. So, you know, individuals have caring responsibilities, may have health issues. Some people may not be willing to return to the office. That might not be a safe place for them to work. So they prefer to work at home because of, you know, their own circumstances. So studies from Harvard Business Review before the pandemic showed that employees who were able to mix their work around about 2 days in the co-located in an office with the rest of the time at home were the most satisfied of the individuals interviewed. But it's not always possible to do that. As I said before, it may be role dependent, is that you can't actually do that. So how do you meet everyone's needs? It's quite a challenge. Ensuring everybody is treated fairly. So the challenge of fairness and equity and avoiding creating a group of haves and have-nots So you create two cultures of them and us within the team, which actually is contrary to collaborative and productive working. Not all roles are the same, and some roles, as I've said before, may preclude that kind of working environment. Creating a team spirit can be really tough. So maintaining that sense of togetherness, and bearing in mind that this can be undermined by this in-group, out-of-group kind of dynamics of the them and us dynamics as well. There's consistent evidence that actually says that that them and us does undermine and reduce collaboration and increases conflict, which then has a detrimental effect on performance. Connecting the on-site and remote staff can be a challenge. You may have the right people working together on the right things at the right time, which is going to be really, really important. And this is about setting agreed rules of how people are going to engage and providing the opportunities for people to come together at the right time to be doing the things they need to be doing. Some examples of those is that some organizations that I know have like core hours. So people know that within those core hours of the day is when you come together and collaborate. And times when you know the whole team are going to be online. So bearing in mind that folks are at home with other commitments may actually move their working day significantly differently to those who are within an office environment. So having a set of core hours where you know people are going to be around is really useful, but it's about agreeing a set of rules there. It's about remaining flexible. VUCA happens all the time. We've gone through a major VUCA event over the past 18 months, but I mean, Brexit has been a VUCA event for 5 years. And before those, there's been financial crises, there's been SARS, there's been all sorts of different VUCA events. So it's the thing of actually remaining flexible. So you're not setting firm in concrete a new way of working with a team. Actually, it's creating that resilience and that agility as well. And as a leader, really difficult being there for people when they need you. How do you meet everyone's needs and getting, feeling the pressure and the challenge of actually, if someone's showing signs of stress, are you able to pick that up in a hybrid working model? It can be quite difficult to do that if you don't see the people front and center. Is it in terms of creating that team spirit and that staff members feeling they're treated fairly? If it's only the people in the office who are getting the treatment and the kind of the attention of the leader, do the other ones feel a bit left out and a bit disenfranchised, and that can impact team spirit and collaboration. So let's have another poll, just a quick one on so multiple answers again. So what are your top 3 challenges based on this the list we've got on the screen now? Thanks, Joe.
Okay. We're starting to get some votes through now.
Oh, we're coming through faster this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing the positive ones, it's a little bit slower, and the more challenging things, we've got the human negativity bias is that these are kind of front and center with us.
Yeah, that demonstrates that perfectly. Okay, we're coming up to about 80% now, so last few seconds, get those votes in, and I'll end the poll and share the results. Okay. Hopefully you can see those on screen now. So yes, again, top of the poll, meeting everyone's needs. And I think certainly with clients I'm working with at the moment, that seems to be a top challenge. It's meeting everyone's individual needs and balancing the organizational needs as well. Such a challenge. Creating that team spirit is a kind of second on that list. And then more or less equally the rest of the challenges, treating people fairly, aligning on-site and remote staff, remaining that flexibility and adaptability, given that we're kind of going through it and continuing to go through it, and being there when needed, being accessible, of course. Thanks very much. I'll stop sharing those now.
Thank you very much. And for you, Joe, you alluded to something there around meeting everyone's needs. Is there something specifically from your own personal experience a challenge of the hybrid working that you can share?
Yeah, I think it's it's a very small anecdote, but a university that I work with, they're struggling with really keeping that focus into the organisational need. What does the work dictate, and trying to balance that with particular individual needs and preferences to some extent. And of course, there's needs that we need to address, and then there's preferences which we kind of have to take into account as well. Yeah, they're struggling with that particularly.
That's great. Thanks, Joe. Thank you. So one thing just to cover before I hand over to Joe to kind of take us through some approaches that help with creating productive and efficient hybrid teams and help that hybrid working. One thing to bear in mind, we're talking about a safe space. So psychological safety is a key enabler of effective hybrid working. So to actually make hybrid working work really well. And that's the belief that that work environment is safe for interpersonal risk taking. So individuals feel safe taking risks because they're not going to be attacked or have something negative happen to them within that. Harvard professor Amy Edmondson is a leading researcher in this field, and she authored a book called The Fearless Organization. And she talks about safety where people feel that they're not punished or humiliated for speaking up, for being open and honest about mistakes that they've made. And psychological safety is present when colleagues trust and respect each other and feel able, even obligated, to be candid. So there's an obligation as an individual team member and as a leader to be candid and flag things up when they see something which isn't happening in alignment with what's been agreed, and feel safe about doing that. So psychological safety kind of presents itself in the team's behaviors. So for example, creating a physically safe workplace and a place where staff trust the work environment, where colleagues care more about us as much as they care about themselves, then that creates that psychologically safe environment. So quite often what sometimes we can hear anecdotally, that people don't want to come back to the workplace because they don't feel it's a safe environment from a physical perspective, from a post-pandemic perspective. Creating psychological safety is that if they trust that their colleagues have their best interest in mind within that, then the use of PPE and people wearing masks and doing things because it's right, not because that there's a rule to actually do it. So there is a need for teams to feel psychologically and physically safe as well. So what does psychological safety kind of look like? Because there are some misnomers with what it is. So kind of how it shows up. So freedom to contribute to discussions, ideas generation. There's no silly idea. An idea is an idea. It creates the ideation process. It kind of feeds the flame of that. So your contribution is actually being invited, welcomed, and listened to. And that is whether you are in the room or you're dialing in. A spoken or unspoken rule that people are valued and respected for their diversity and uniqueness. So you may bring an opinion or an idea which is kind of contrary to, it may seem a bit odd, but actually that's welcomed and valued for the rest of the team to kind of explore that, and that ends up coming up with much better solutions. Having the permission to speak up and raise concerns and anxieties. We learn through failure. So failing fast and failure is a learning experience for the team. And harnessing the diverse and unique members' teams' skills, experience, and strengths. And hybrid working can really help that. If through accessibility to an office is not working, then hybrid working can kind of can bring in that diversity, inclusiveness, and accessibility to the group. But being in a psychologically safe team is not all about being nice and cozy. And sometimes psychological safety could be, it's a bit nice and cozy, isn't it? It's not very productive. What psychological safety isn't, so it's not about giving people the freedom to speak up regardless of the consequence. We need to maintain professionalism, respect, ethical practices, and value each other. So it's not a case of you say something to hurt someone's feelings. Actually, you have the freedom to speak up, but you do it in a way that it's coming from the right place for the right reasons, in a way that creates a constructive conversation. It's not a permission to fail continuously. We should learn from our failures and get better and not repeat that. So we need boundaries and need to review failure and seek to do things differently next time and commit to doing that. It's not permission to excuse underperformance. So we need to keep the focus on the team performance and ensure that we're working productively in the as we achieve those objectives. It's not permission to compromise on safety or step away from governance and regulation. So we almost always have to have a license to operate and be compliant in the context of the work we do. So it's not about giving people free rein, it's creating the environment where people feel safe to actually work really effectively and collaboratively together within the context of a hybrid working setting. So I'll now hand over to Jo, who's going to take us through some of the things that we can do to be a more effective hybrid leaders and lead more productive hybrid teams.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so part of the work that Amy Edmondson did with her book, Fearless Organisation, that Mark mentioned before, she produced a leader's toolkit to help us build psychological safety. And on reviewing that toolkit, it's useful to be able to think about it and apply it in the context of leading hybrid teams. I think it really helps. And so the toolkit itself involves three aspects. So first, setting the stage. This involves framing the work, being really clear with each other about what we're wanting to achieve and how we'll achieve it. And then secondly, really emphasizing purpose, thinking about why we're doing what we're doing and focusing on why, what's our collective mission, our vision, our goals, and the individual part we play in that collective mission. Secondly, we have the aspect of thinking about how we invite participation genuinely. And this is welcoming contribution from everyone in the team, irrespective of where they're located, as Mark said. Proactively involving people with genuine humility. So even us as the most expert leaders with perhaps lots more seniority or knowledge or experience, recognize that anybody within that team may well have a better idea to throw in the mix. And if we can intentionally encourage all to share ideas and options openly, then we're much more likely to feel safe to then have a debate, share our opinions and thoughts about those ideas to reach the best outcome. And then the third aspect, responding productively. So welcoming the feedback and truly appreciating it and acting upon it. So whether it's ideas and thoughts are debated and taken forward or debated and not taken forward, making sure that we've kind of got that feedback loop so people know where we're going with that feedback. It's about destigmatizing failure, as Mark said, using failure as a learning opportunity and really encouraging that agile approach, experimentation and learning, and being clear that failure is a necessary part of growth. And really important, sanctioning clear violations. So as Mark said, it's not that safe and cozy environment. We still need to keep that focus on performance, deliverables, excellence. So we do need to call out where perhaps people haven't necessarily acted within our agreements of ways of working. And so Amy Edmondson says that psychological safety takes the brakes that keep people from achieving, takes the brakes off, but it's not the fuel that powers the car. She talks about keeping a focus on excellence to fuel performance. So in summary, with a strong foundation of psychological safety, the team are much more likely to be agile and adapt to uncertainty and change, much more likely to be innovative by welcoming, trying out, encouraging new ideas, much more safe, feeling able to contribute openly and challenge if things aren't right or aren't working, and much more productive because we're keeping that collective focus on team priorities. So building psychological safety trust in that team whilst maintaining the focus on performance, we can really help to navigate the challenges that hybrid working presents us. So lovely, it'd be lovely to hear from you now. Mark, we've got another poll, if you could open it. If you paid attention to improving psychological safety within your hybrid team, which do you believe would be the most benefit to you in terms of performance? And maybe just choose one here. Great. I can see the votes coming through. How are we doing, Mark?
We have 53%.
Lovely.
60. Great audience today. Really quick on the fingers.
Yeah.
65. Just give it a few more seconds. That's there, nearly there. 3. I think we're about there. 3, 2, 1. Let's end the polling there. And we've got 38% productive, and then second innovative, and safe, then agile.
Lovely. Great. So it's focusing very much on that productivity from this perspective, I guess, but of course, benefits of all 4 would come to the fore. So let's have a look at the tool itself and what we can actually do at each of those stages to help navigate some of the challenges of hybrid working. And so first, setting the stage, and what we would recommend, and we've added in here, is with compassion. Yeah, this is all about setting out clear expectations, agreeing priorities and ways of working as a team, but doing that with compassion, given the challenges that we're all facing and continuing to face. Let's face it, this is an ongoing experience, and we've got further challenges to come. And maybe we're moving into hybrid, and maybe we might have to move back into remote working again. So keeping that compassion at the front of mind. Thinking about first things first, your kind of role as a leader is very much around support. Yeah, so whether it's a pandemic or not, support is important. Checking in frequently, both individually with one-to-ones and as a team, and giving the team space to open up about their concerns individually and collectively. And again, thinking about how do you make that happen where everybody feels involved, whether they're at home or in the office on site in the organisation. And it's all about actively listening and offering support here. Thinking about those clear expectations, we need to demonstrate that we're committed to making the situation work for everyone on the team, managing those individual needs, but also that the deliverables have to be achieved. And to some extent, compromise may well be necessary. And if we talk about that as a team, we start to then open up the conversations around empathy and support for each other, and how can we all work together to make this work. Remembering to keep the focus on why, we talked about that before, didn't we? If we can keep the focus on why we're doing what we're doing, it's going to help us to balance the organisational need. And when we're thinking about priorities and ways of working, that can be a really useful way to agree how we're going to communicate, who has access to what, who needs to be involved in what meeting, who needs to be in making the decisions, having that kind of frame of ways of working, but keeping that why central to that conversation to help manage any disagreements or enable compromises to happen. And we need to talk about our team with our team about creating new practices, new protocol, and of course, using the opportunity to reflect on what already might have worked for us over the last 18 months. What do we want to keep? What do we need to adjust as we maybe move into a hybrid model? And making sure we're keeping that reviewed regularly to check in it's working for the team. And how team members plan to structure their working hours, making sure people are aware of how that work is going to be conducted, so we can all be aware of how and when we can communicate with each other in the most appropriate way. As I said, compromise may well be necessary here. And finally, it's really critical through all of these transitions as ever that we continue to pay close attention to team members' stress levels. And if we're observing unusual, unexpected behaviour, check in and listen. compassion, focus and connection are the antidote to burnout. So keeping that focus of compassion all at forefront of mind. So Mark, just interested to hear from you in terms of setting the stage with compassion. What kind of works for you? What helps make you feel safe when we're starting to think about this aspect?
Thanks, Jo. Yeah, I mean, a quick one for me would be, as a leader, you role model. So actually setting the stage, you go in first as a leader, sets the tone for the team. Really helps create that basis for psychological safety in the team. So for me, the one thing that works really well, and the one thing which I try to do, is go first, and then that gives people permission right from that first point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important here. The goal at this stage is to really embed a kind of agile culture that supports that hybrid working, and role modeling and creating permission for that to happen is really important as a leader. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the second stage now. So this is inviting participation, and we think here it's through building connection. And we talked about that level of trust that's so important. How can we build connection with our team? And Mark's already alluded to it. The challenge of working with a hybrid team is proximity bias. You know, we may make an incorrect assumption people on site are more productive than those who are not, or in some cases the other way around. Or we might communicate more with people that are close by us. So we need to be thinking about, how do we create that equal playing field for everybody? Being more intentional here is really helpful. Not leaving things to naturally evolve, but establishing those basic ground rules. So I would always say, in the first instance, think remote first, and then move towards, right, how do we work with that on site? We know it won't be easy, nor will it be perfect. So try things out, see how they work, share your mistakes, share when things aren't going well, and agree with the team, how we're going to make this better. Showing vulnerability and encouraging others is really key here, and sharing successes to reinforce the great agile working that you're doing. That will help continue that agility for the future. Encouraging challenge and debate. Everyone on the team should be given the opportunity to weigh in wherever they are. So role model, remind, reinforce activity that includes remote colleagues, trying to think of them first, as I already mentioned. And empowering your team, letting them have a say in how they work and where they work. In times of uncertainty, we can naturally slip into micromanagement tendencies. It's our need to control, to get into that kind of safe space again, that comfort feeling again, but resist that urge to check up, but continue to check in. And approaching team members with positive intent, really trusting that they're contributing to the best of their ability, again, irrespective of where they're working, and using check-ins to balance the challenge and support that they need to thrive. Sharing clear objectives, clear expectations, but give the team autonomy to work on them. Try not to focus too much on where, how, or what they're doing, but focusing on the outcomes. What are they delivering? And keep that connection to purpose, keeping our mind attended to why we're doing what we're doing helps us to keep momentum, keep motivated when things get tough, when barriers are faced, but again, helps us to really focus on how do we manage some of the challenges that are coming up in terms of satisfying individual and organizational need. And finally, let's try as much as possible to make it fun. Many of us miss the laughter and levity from pre-pandemic lives, the workplace chatter, the connections we build. So giving time for informal sessions, so coffee, lunchtime sessions where people on site and remote workers get together to chat freely, times where there's no agenda, making sure they're open to everybody, you know, thinking about some themes to get you started, your favorite book, your TV show, what did you do at the weekend? So Mark, what helps you contribute openly, helps you feel that you're going to participate?
Key thing for me would be to encourage a variety of communication tools. So don't stick with the traditional ones, actually find other tools, other channels to actually do that. So a really good example is us as consultants. You know, we can go weeks and months not talking with each other. We've got a really good office manager who runs the WhatsApp group. So enables everyone to engage through the WhatsApp group, but actually it's actively kind of managed by that individual who has a passion for it. So find kind of your advocates of various channels and utilize those, because you can't rely on just one channel of emails or the meeting itself. You've got to rely on other things, but you've got to actively actually drive those.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about that and thinking about how can we collaborate most effectively, and this responding productively with great collaboration. Yeah, so proactively asking for feedback, we talked a little bit about that before, appreciating it and acting on it. Really encouraging safe risk-taking and being open to failure is key to solving problems, and then reflecting on that learning. You're setting the tone as the leader, as we mentioned. As highly professional researchers, you're going to be really skilled in this approach. But how do we bring this approach into our leading responsibilities and how we work together as a team? Do we apply those principles that we apply in research to how we work together as a team? And of course, sometimes guardrails are needed to make sure that the risk-taking is safe and calculated, but recognizing that's that necessary part. And if we can do this, navigating hybrid working will be less challenging, recognizing that there's things that work, that don't work, that we have to adapt as we go. It's all part of the journey, and it's how we continue to improve how we work together, reflecting on what we want to keep and what do we want to forget as we move into those next stages. So, asking for challenge, encouraging different views is key to securing commitment to the way forward. Having a good debate about it will hopefully mean that the teams feel listened to, feel that they've been involved, and as a result are going to be much more committed to the outcome. And when we seek clear commitment, we encourage the team to take individual accountability, but also peer accountability. They can hold each other to account. There's enough trust and safety in the team for that to happen. And so again, when we know that they're not coming to us as the leader to sort it out, but they're sorting it out between themselves, we know that's an absolute great level of trust and psychological safety, and a real game changer in performance. Keeping focus on expectations, we've talked about that before. And finally, reminding the team of their individual contributions to the collective goal can keep that focus on team effort, collaboration and success and connection to feel that sense of belonging in the team. Okay, so I'll just go to a few key summary points from this aspect of the toolkit. So first, people need to feel psychologically safe to bring their whole selves to work and contribute fully. By setting the stage and inviting participation and responding productively, what we've just talked through, we can create that psychologically safe environment and keep our focus on excellence. And hybrid working demands even more compassion, even more connection and collaboration. It's around being intentional and having explicit agreements to make it work. And so just to end, before we get to your questions, we wanted to share some key practical tools and tips for you to consider. So keep a focus on remote team members first. Plan for extra clarity, communication and time for discussion. We've talked about that intention. Think about how we're going to use different ways to connect, as Mark suggested, using different channels, maybe some collaborative project tools that help people see visibility on progress, but also using some mechanisms for more informal chat and discussion too. Thinking about how we can intentionally buddy people up and arrange cross-working groups with team members at home and on site. So we're purposely creating connections to remove those barriers and creating a meeting structure and different channels, as we've already mentioned. So some practical tips to take away, and we're interested to hear from you what might you take away from today? So we've got a final poll, if we can quickly open that. And this is, what of the practical actions will you take away and use from today? So what might be helpful for you?
Okay, the votes are coming through.
Yeah, I can see. That's great. How are we doing? What's worked best for you, Mark, while we're waiting for all the votes to come in?
I would say taking more time to create clarity. Yeah. So being really clear at the beginning, because it's really easy for miscommunication, misunderstanding to creep in if you haven't got that clarity at the beginning. Yeah. So take extra time, take double the time you would normally take.
Which is difficult when we're in a very fast-paced environment, but of course it's that aspect of putting the time in to save time later, which is often the challenge.
Okay, we're going to close 3, 2, 1.
Great.
There you go. Show the results. There you go.
Oh, look, the team, the people on the webinar agree with you, Mark. So thank you for sharing that. Brilliant. And we've also put together some additional resources for you. So you have the ability to be able to see some additional reading if you're interested, and some links for the slides. So thank you for your time and attention and participation so far. We'd really love to hear from you in regard to questions that you might have. So I'll hand over to Martine now, who's going to facilitate our Q&A.
Okay. So thank you so much for that interesting session that you've just run. So we're going to go to the question and answer section now. And just a reminder that you still have time to put your questions in, and of course you can send your questions in anonymously. So I've just been looking at some of the questions we have, and are you ready for the first question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we have here, we have a fairly new hybrid team who have to embrace new areas of work, and some are not happy. What suggestions would you make to try and get staff to take a more positive approach to the change in their role?
So it's always challenging to think positively about change, because our natural human instinct is to look at it negatively, is to look at the problems with it, because it's the thing that keeps us safe and keeps us in that comfort zone. So I think it's about trying to reframe the questions around, what opportunity does this change bring to you? What could be an advantage for you? What could you get from it? To try and flip the thinking from the negativity bias into the positivity bias, because once we get into a more open mindset, options and ideas seem to come more easily to us. We're not closing our thinking down. Anything to add, Mark?
No, I think that's you covered that. Thanks, Jo.
Great. Thank you.
How are we doing, Martine?
Next question.
All right. So the next one down is, when I'm on a call with people who are in the same room as each other, I often feel excluded and not able to fully contribute. What can I do about this?
That really frustrates me if I've dialed in and no one's listening to me and you can hear the chatter going on. One thing, it may sound a bit weird, but actually, well, the first thing is to set some ground rules at the beginning of the meeting about, you know, the fact that you have remote people there. How are you going to manage those, and have maybe flags, maybe a way of those people saying, hang about, we feel excluded. The other top tip is, in the room, have a chair with a piece of paper on with that person's name. So it's all about visual clues. So if you've got a queue in the room and you've got a piece of paper, people will quite often not forget that somebody dialed in. And the worst thing is a telephone dial-in rather than a video conference. But have a visual cue for the people in the room, but also set some ground rules at the beginning of the call as well.
Yeah, and I think if you're the person at the other end So if you're the leader of the team or the leader of the meeting, that's brilliant because you can kind of set that tone. If you're the person at the other end that's feeling excluded, I would suggest maybe asking a question. How am I best contributing to this meeting given I'm on the phone? So asking the question, which then opens up the thinking about, yeah, how are we going to include this person? Thank you.
So next question. So how can I get one of my team members to come into the workplace when they don't want to?
This is very hard, isn't it? And I guess, is it that they don't want to or they feel they can't? So there's some kind of legal obligations, I guess, you've got to think about first in terms of health and that kind of thing. But if it's a preference and they really don't want to, I think it's about opening up the discussion, really understanding why, and thinking about ways they can do it in a way that helps them to feel safe about coming in. So it might be about public transport. Is there a different way we can bring them into the office? Is there a different way maybe we could meet somewhere as a kind of halfway house almost before we go into the office? Gentle baby steps can often happen. Anything to add, Mark, that you might suggest?
No, I think it's that shared ownership of the problem and to jointly come up with a solution which might not be ideal for both, but actually is a working solution.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. So when I'm having a project team call, it's really hard to get input from the team. How can I get them talking more?
I guess for this one, it's about setting the stage. And I mean, one of the key things for me is for the leader or someone to be role modeling what's expected and actually have some questions that can be put out there into the team to kind of elicit a response rather than going, what does everyone think and nobody says anything because of fear of putting your head above the parapet. So maybe psychological safety is in place there, but actually as a leader, actually put something out for debate and discussion can encourage people to come in. So it's the kind of the principle of go first. Don't wait for other people to come in. Go first and prepare something in advance.
Yeah, I think for me, it maybe comes back to when we talked about setting the stage and framing the work and how we're going to do it. We talk openly and say, you know, it's really hard to get engagement sometimes when people are at home and in the office. So how can we agree to do it in the best way? And one of those agreements might be we're going to call out and ask for people's contributions. And if we can agree as part of that ways of working discussion, we're going to ask specific people what do they think, so that they don't feel obliged. They may not have anything to contribute, but that's okay. It's okay to say, actually, I've got nothing to contribute at this stage. So it's all about setting the tone. How do we work together in the best way? And as Mark said, making sure we're not just saying, has anyone got any thoughts or ideas, but we're giving them a specific question to answer.
Making sure I'm off mute. So next one is, if everyone is in the team is working on their own working day, how can I ensure we still meet critical deadlines for the project?
So with that one, it maybe comes around using tools which are front and center. So if you know, initially we're creating the shared common purpose for the group and how each individual team member is contributing towards that common purpose. If you've created that sense of people know what they need to do and they can go on to do it, then it's a case of performance managing against that to make sure things are actually being delivered. And maybe having a dashboard, we all use Teams now, is have something on Teams where you've got a live tracker which flags up, you know, when something is getting close to deadlines. So as a leader, you're not micromanaging, you're checking on progress, you're checking in, not checking on individuals, but creating common purpose initially is really key to that.
Yeah, those collaboration tools, Teams obviously is one, another couple of examples, Asana and Trello. They're really useful tools because if you give access to everybody gets to see the same visibility. So you can easily see where things are tracking off, you know, off track, going off track. And it just creates some of that, as Mark said, that tendency to micromanage.
Okay, we've just got a couple more questions. So we've got one here. Any top tips for someone who struggled to delegate previously? When we all worked in the same place, it feels even easier to do it all by myself.
Yeah, I think delegation is often starts with us. We need to get in the right mindset for delegation, and we need to be willing to do it. And so making sure that we recognize that even though it may take time to delegate and it might take a bit of time for it to come back, it might not be quite how you wanted it to be done and your preferred style, but recognizing that actually taking some time up front, some investment in time to have a good conversation with clear expectations, clear agreement about how much support is needed is really important. And recognizing that investment in time up front will pay off in the future, because as that individual either becomes more willing to take up activity or more used to being expected to take up that activity, then they naturally start to take much more accountability.
So we've got one more question here. So any key tips for running large hybrid events to ensure online participants can engage with the discussion in the room?
Well, I guess it would depend on how large the large hybrid event is. I think the use of, I found the use of technology works, so things like polls, the Q&A board, making sure though, if you've got Q&A that you're monitoring it. So quite often for a virtual event, there'll be a lead consultant and we'll have a second consultant being like the production manager of keeping an eye on the Q&A, making sure that if anybody's remotely asking questions that they get answered at the right time. So the important thing for a large hybrid event is have the right production team in place to manage the virtual channel as well as in the room. Utilization of interactive tools helps keep people engaged, but it's about the structure to make sure those individuals don't feel excluded. So it's not you could do a breakout room with the virtual participants and breakouts with the in the room participants, depending on how big the event is. So there are ways of doing it. If it's utilizing technology, and just think you can't do it yourself, actually it takes a bit more effort and resource to be able to run those effectively.
Yeah, and I think again, think remote first. What's going to work in the remote environment first, and how can we kind of include the people in the room, or do we do something different with that group? But how do we create that collaboration together, starting from the remote perspective?
And then we have someone's mentioned someone in our chat box there. If someone prefers to work remotely most of the time due to existing health conditions, due to the risk of exposure to ongoing COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to take that into account, don't we, and work with that and adjust how we work together. So really important that we kind of take care of our kind of caring responsibility, our duty of care as an employer, as a leader, as a manager, but also trying to recognize preferences as well and accommodate where we can, where the work dictates that we can, to help people feel more satisfied, more happy, more involved, and all of the benefits that come from that flexible working.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just mindful of time, so we'll look to bring this to a close unless anybody else has any other questions. Okay, so thanks again, Mark and Jo. Hopefully everyone has found this webinar beneficial and feels able to implement some of the behaviours that we've explored. And as I mentioned at the start of the webinar, for those of you joining us live, as we close the session, you will be asked to complete a quick evaluation form. The link is also available now in the chat. This will give you an opportunity to share your email address so that you can receive a copy of the slides. And if you have time now, we would really appreciate your feedback. It's greatly appreciated. So all our past webinars can be found on our NIHR TV YouTube channel under the Development and Support Webinars playlist. And as you'll see already in our chat box, there are some additional resources available for our online leadership development resourced through the NIHR Learn. You'll find there's some additional 9 modules there, and also our NIHR Academy events page, which will also help keep you up to date. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day, and thank you to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
you.